this year. New cars, new engines, new tyre and wing regulations, and they're going to make things very different. But the most significant thing here is that there's every prospect of a season of excitement and drama and real competition, because 3 times world champion Alain Prost is back to lead the Williams team after a year's sabbatical. And Ayrton Senna, who we feared might be taking a year off, is driving here in South Africa, driving an all-new McLaren Ford. And the 2 rivals, with 6 world championships between them in the last 8 years, are on the front row of the grid. And joining our worldwide audience, sitting at Surfers Paradise in Australia before the start of the IndyCar season, 3 world champions: Nigel Mansell, Mario Andretti and Barry Sheene. Good day, gentlemen. But here in South Africa, it's all excitement, because Alain Prost is celebrating his return to Grand Prix racing, as I just said, with his 21st pole position in the Williams Renault, which he has been testing through the winter. But even more sensational is the fact that the all-new McLaren Ford, this year without a Honda engine, is on the 2nd row of the grid, which a lot of people did not expect, and sadly I have to admit that I was one of them. Ayrton Senna in the cockpit. He's decided to drive in South Africa. You're looking at Alain Prost now. Whether Ayrton Senna goes on for the rest of the season remains to be seen. There's all sorts of negotiations going on behind the scenes. But in 3rd position on the grid is the young German genius, and I use the word advisedly, 23-year-old Michael Schumacher in the Benetton Ford. And on the 2nd row of the grid with him, driving in his first Grand Prix in a real Grand Prix car, is Britain's Damon Hill, son of the great Graham Hill. And it's a superb performance that Damon has put up. He's under enormous pressure. You're looking at Ayrton Senna now. And 5th on the grid is Jean Alesi in the Ferrari. He has gone much better in practice. As we look at Frank Williams, Alesi's gone much better in practice than we expected him to. But one of the most significant things about the 26-car grid here at Kyalami, 6,000 feet up. The altitude affects the performance of the cars and the drivers. But in 6th position is JJ Leto, the Finnish driver, who's not enjoyed the best of motor cars in the past. And he's in the brand new Sauber car, which is made in Switzerland at Hinwil and is backed by the Mercedes-Benz organisation. Riccardo Patrese is 7th on the grid, driving this year for Benetton. And the 2nd British driver on the grid is back to Grand Prix racing, Mark Blundell in the Ligier. Now there you see an on-board camera shot from one of the Benettons. There are 4 on-board cameras here today on the Ferraris, and that is that in the Ferrari there is Jean Alesi. And on the other Ferrari, Gerhard Berger. They are also on the Williams, they're on the Benettons, and they're on the McLarens. I should warn you that they're using rather short focus lens, which means it's often difficult to identify the driver. There's a demonstration of what I mean. That is in fact the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger. I can just see his black helmet in the left wing mirror. And you'll know the Ferraris because the camera is on the left, and on the other cars it is on the right. So what are the prospects, and what about this course here at Kyalami? 2.65 miles long, 72 laps. It's going to be a tough race of about 1 hour and 35 minutes.
Yes, the prospects are tremendous, Murray. We've got Senna in a pretty competitive McLaren, not quite as quick as the Williams, but it looks as if we're not going to have any one-horse race this year for the championship, and Senna is really fired up. We're looking forward to a good race today, and it's going to be very hard work for the drivers. It's extremely hot here. There is a possibility of electric storm later in the race, although we hope it'll hold off until afterwards. And this circuit is extremely hard on the body. The old Kyalami was just the reverse, was very easy physically, great long straight, not much G-forces, but here very short straights connecting quite a lot of very quick corners, and the drivers are going to take a real pounding, and that is exacerbated by the altitude, which makes 20% less air for them to breathe, and therefore they are physically not at their best as well. So it's going to be a real tough race.
And there they go around this circuit. It enjoys gradient. A lot of Grand Prix circuits don't. The one problem that we have at Kyalami is that it is very, very difficult to pass. That is why, like Monaco and like Hungary, it is very important indeed that you should be on the front row of the grid, and preferably in pole position, so that the staggered grid gives you an advantage and you're a car length ahead of the second man. So that's why Alain Prost benefits over Ayrton Senna, plus the fact that the Renault engine in Prost-Williams is alleged to produce about 75 horsepower more than the Ford Cosworth V8 engine in Ayrton Senna's car. Now, who's going to be first into the first corner will therefore be critical. Both those drivers have got the advantage, if you see it that way, of traction control. It's an electronic system which reduces the possibility, indeed almost stops the possibility, of wheel spin. Prost and Senna will both therefore be flooring the accelerator and surging away from the line, and to some extent it's the team that's got the electronics right that will ensure that their driver gets the better start. Ayrton Senna in the warm-up this morning, by the way, he was second fastest to Alain Prost, who was fastest, has been testing starts a lot in the final practice yesterday afternoon and in the half-hour warm-up period this morning. In that warm-up period, Prost fastest, Senna second, Schumacher was third. Damon Hill a fine fourth position, as he is on the grid. Michael Andretti was fifth quickest. The American is finding problems in adjusting to Grand Prix racing because the techniques are very different in terms of how you handle the car. And sixth fastest was Jean Alesi. There he is, just giving a bit of welly to the Ferrari as he comes in. And there is not a single team here that has got the same two drivers as it had in 1992. Several of them have got new engines, new chassis. There are different tyre regulations, 15-inch wide instead of 18-inch wide tyres, less downforce because of smaller wings. It all adds up to a really exciting and intriguing South African Grand Prix of 1993, starting the season. Away they go. Senna's got a superb start. Schumacher comes up. Damon Hill is into third position as they go into the first left corner, and Senna's done it. Ayrton Senna has got ahead, and look at that, a complete spin by Alain Prost. He's overdone it, and Damon Hill spins there. Prost goes through. Andretti's been left on the start. There he is, and there's two more stuck at the back. Michael Andretti is still on the grid. One of the Larousses is still on the grid, and it looks to me as though, well, there we are. Eric Comas is stuck on the grid, and so is Andrea De Cesaris. Well, so it looks as though the entry is down to 23 already. Alain Prost goes through. Well, Ayrton Senna, an absolutely magnificent start. The Brazilian is right back in the groove. Look at that. And Schumacher is in second position with Alain Prost in third place, and in fourth position and fifth position it's the two Saubers. JJ Leto is in fourth place. Paul Wendlinger, his teammate, is in fifth place, and already the South African Grand Prix is turning out to be a stunner. Now look at this. Here's a replay of the start, and you see Alain Prost makes a good start, but not nearly as good as Senna.
Yes, and then the mistake here by Damon Hill getting sideways, and that really hurt Alain Prost, because and Prost behind the Benetton. A poor start by Prost, and Hill gets going again. But Senna taking full advantage of having Prost behind Schumacher's Benetton, and Prost seems to be losing ground.
Well, this is a quite incredible start, because now Michael Schumacher in the Benetton, which was not going nearly as well as the Ford-powered McLarens during the practice session, and Senna leads Schumacher at the end of the first lap by 1.7 seconds, with Alain Prost third. The two Saubers, as I told you, of Leto and Wendlinger, there they go through the picture. Alesi is in sixth position. Mark Blundell, look for him, there he is behind Alesi. Behind him is Martin Brundle. So the two British drivers in the French Ligier team, which has Renault engines, are seventh and eighth. Riccardo Patrese is ninth. And we've got news on Michael Andretti from Jonathan Palmer in the pit lane.
Apparently the problem was that Andretti lost the throttle, this fly-by-wire throttle. He lost hydraulic pressure when the engine revs lock got low, and that lost him the throttle. He's now got it and he's underway.
Well, that's good news anyway. A poor start for Michael Andretti's Grand Prix year. His father, Mario, is watching him in Australia in Surfers Paradise with Barry Sheen and Nigel Mansell, because Mario and Michael will be driving in the first Indy race next season. But look at this, the Ligiers. There is Alesi and the Saubers, the black Saubers with concept by Mercedes-Benz on the side of them. That's Wendlinger. And Carl Wendlinger, who is in 5th position ahead of Alesi, Blundell, Brundle and Patrese, is headed by JJ Leto there in 4th position. This is very interesting indeed, because JJ Leto has been driving the Dallara for the last 2 years, and that was a very poor handling motor car. He's been looking for a good one. Now he's got it, starts 6th on the grid. And Damon Hill is in 12th position on this, the 3rd lap in the 72-lap South African Grand Prix, with Ayrton Senna, I would imagine, scarcely believing his luck that Prost was delayed by that Damon Hill spin. Damon under terrific pressure here. And Ayrton Senna on lap 3 of his, I can't say he's returned to Grand Prix racing because he hasn't actually been away, but we weren't expecting to see him, and he's 2.3 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher.
Yes, and I would think that Senna is probably already paying attention to looking after his tyres. He was, nobody's quite sure whether they're going to have to stop or not for tyres. There's not enough knowledge about these new tyres yet in hot conditions, and Senna certainly was hoping to try and get through the race, and of course having Prost with his bad start back in 3rd place gives Senna the chance, the opportunity to take it a bit easy.
And out goes the Ivan Capelli. Well, he had terrible luck with Ferrari, and it looks as though his luck is not continuing now that he's moved to the Jordan team, because the Hart Power Jordan is out of the race. We are on lap 3. Ayrton Senna is leading Schumacher by 2.4 seconds. Prost is the fastest man on the course at the moment. He's just gone round in 1 minute 21.19. That's about 3 seconds off the lap record. And JJ Leto, Wendlinger, 4th and 5th. There they are. The all-black cars with hardly any sponsorship on them at all. And they are powered by Ilmor engines. Now, there's the leader, and you can see how close Michael Schumacher is to him. Michael Schumacher, who won a Grand Prix in his first full season last year when he won the Belgian Grand Prix in Spa. Now, is the gap coming down? The gap is coming down because Schumacher is closing on Senna. It's now 1.9 seconds. And it's a good time to point out to you again that, as ever, but for a very different reason, tyres are going to be a major factor in this Grand Prix, because the governing body obliged the teams to use smaller tyres this year in the hope of reducing the speed of the cars. The tyres are 3 inches narrower and therefore give less grip. But and there you see the Jordan, that is the Jordan, and you can see it's very badly battered indeed. Well, Capelli out, and I'm just looking to see where Rubens Barrichello is. He's in 14th position at the moment, and on the 5th lap there's the leader. Now you can see there's an enormous gap between, in 2nd position, Michael Schumacher and Prost. Prost is 3.5 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, and I really did not expect that. Now he's starting to close up. There's the Frenchman. Through goes Ayrton Senna to complete another lap, and the gap between him and Michael Schumacher is now pretty static. It's about 2 seconds. Alain Prost in 3rd place, and he's gone faster again, so Prost has got the bit between his teeth. He's fighting back. They call him the Professor. He's the smoothest driver on the track, always has been, and he's very, very quick as well.
Yes, I think Prost has been, again, like Senna, nursing his tyres a little bit there, because there's no doubt he can go a lot faster than this. He did 1:18 in the warm-up. He's just put up fastest lap of the race at 1:21.1, and I think he's just brought the tyres in gently to try and make them last, also probably to try and do it without a stop, and now he'll slowly start to turn up the heat.
All the drivers in this race, of course, are using Goodyear tyres, and they're all using the same compound. I won't go into all the details of it, but they're using the same type of tyre in terms of compound hardness. That's the B compound. It's almost certain that every team will stop once. Drivers like Gerhard Berger, who are hard on tyres, may stop more than once. Now, there is Prost in third position. As you can see from the caption, he's fastest. And as you can see, he is starting to gain on Michael Schumacher. Prost, now. Let's see. Well, he's visibly gaining on him, it seems to me. But now Ayrton Senna has put in a quick lap. It was the fastest at the time, but Prost has gone even quicker. The gap between... And... I think it's a Minardi. It may well be Fabrizio Barbazza. We need to have a look at the actual car itself. But anyway, there is Alain Prost. JJ Leto is missing. And Andretti comes into the pits. Michael Andretti. And Jonathan Palmer, news.
Leto is in the pits. There seems to be a problem. They're going to take the engine. They're stopping the engine. They're going to take the cover off, I think. We don't know what's going on, but he's clearly out of the race in practical terms.
What a pity, because Leto was driving an absolutely superb race in fourth position. And there is Michael Andretti. Well, I said earlier on, when he had that awful start and was left on the grid, that looked like a very quick end to his first Grand Prix. I was wrong then, because he got away. Now, I'm guessing, I really am guessing, but one of the new things about the McLaren is not only that it has staggered panels on the side of the body, which are assisting the airflow, and you'll only see them on Senna's car now, but they also have the most sophisticated electronics of any car. And I know the team were worried about reliability, but I also know that Jonathan Palmer, as Andretti retires from his first Grand Prix, Jonathan Palmer knows the Sauber story.
Yes, not engine at all, I'm afraid, but gearbox. They have had problems with that gearbox in testing. It looks like it stopped them now.
Lap 8 of 74, and Senna leads Schumacher, and you can see Alain Prost catching the German. The Austrian Wendlinger in the Sauber is now in fourth position. Up into fifth place has come Alesi in the Ferrari. Up into sixth place has come Mark Blundell in the Ligier, and seventh is Martin Brundle. So where is Damon Hill? The answer is he's down in 11th place after his spin. Johnny Herbert, the other British driver, is in 14th position. And I'm just trying to check as I talk to you where Derek Warwick is. I'll come back with that in a minute. Meantime, you look down from the helicopter and there are several drivers, and Michael Andretti is with Jonathan Palmer.
Great work at BBC, Michael. Okay, I'm with Michael. Come with me as soon as you can. Just come out here a bit.
Well, we were with Jonathan Palmer, but meantime, it's still Ayrton Senna. Senna leading, and now Jonathan has got Michael Andretti.
Michael, this looks bitterly disappointing. Your car's got tyre marks all the way down the side and a wheel off. What happened?
Well, first off, when I put the clutch in at the start, it just... And he almost hit the guy in front of him, but then I hit him, and it was like a chain reaction type thing.
Michael, a great shame. Thanks very much.
You rejoin us on lap 8 of the South African Grand Prix with Ayrton Senna leading Schumacher by mere 1.3 seconds. Alain Prost is 1.8 seconds behind Schumacher.
Yes, and a big disappointment for Michael Andretti. It hasn't been a tremendously happy start to his Grand Prix career, but he's impressed everybody here with his attitude and his confidence, but he was very disappointed with his qualifying. He was exactly 3 seconds slower than Ayrton Senna, and the times were finally achieved, and he naturally was unhappy with that, but felt that there's plenty more to come. And he did have some trouble on Saturday in the second qualifying session with the active suspension on his car. It wasn't behaving exactly right, so but I'm quite sure he'll be bouncing back.
But look at this. This is a terrific scrap, led by Gerhard Berger's Ferrari in 9th position, followed by Philippe Alliot's Larousse, and Damon Hill in the Williams trying to get past both of them. Behind him is Zanardi. Then in 13th place is Rubens Barrichello and Johnny Herbert in the Lotus.
And the leading 3 now all together. Senna will not be rattled by this situation. He knows full well that without a mistake by him, there is really no chance, or no real chance, for Schumacher to get past, and he's protecting him from Prost as well.
But you remember what I said about the excitement being back in Grand Prix racing. Well, here are the 6 world champions, 3 from Ayrton Senna, 3 from Alain Prost, as Prost challenges Schumacher for second position. Schumacher will have nothing of it, and of course all this is helping Ayrton Senna, because while Schumacher and Prost are fighting each other and occupying the whole of the course, Ayrton Senna, with a clear track in front of him, is able to take the best possible racing line without worrying about Schumacher, who's just under a second in terms of time behind him. You can see the visual difference. But it's a McLaren that we certainly didn't expect to be leading a Grand Prix at this early in the year. McLaren powered by a Ford engine, a Benetton powered by a Ford engine. The Williams with the all-conquering Renault engine from 1992 in 3rd position, and Prost has dropped back a lot. 4th position is Wendlinger, 5th is Alesi, and now Schumacher's having a go at Ayrton Senna. But as James has said, Ayrton Senna is a really cool customer. This is his 143rd Grand Prix, and he's the most thinking driver of them all.
Yes, we expect the traffic, the back markers, to play quite a significant part in this race. They've completed 10 laps, and they'll be getting amongst, well, they've already passed a few people who have had trouble. But in fact, it's not going to be quite such a big factor as we expected, because there have been quite a few retirements already, and that takes the crowding away from the circuit. But Senna is the master in traffic, but of course the man in front is the man who has to warn the traffic of the back markers of the arrival of the leaders, and very often he's the man at the disadvantage.
Capelli is out, Leto is out, Andretti is out, and here are the first 3 on lap 12 out of 72. Senna, Schumacher, Prost. Then there's an 18-second gap. Wendinger is 4th, marvellous in the first Grand Prix for the Sauber. He is 6 seconds ahead of 5th place man Jean Alesi in the Ferrari. Then the 2 English drivers, Mark Blundell and Martin Brundle, in 6th and 7th places for Ligier. 8th is Patrese, 9th is Berger, 10th is Alliot, and 11th is Damon Hill.
And Schumacher is certainly looking for a way past Senna at the moment. He's giving it a go. What he'll probably do is give it half a dozen laps and see if he can find a way by, then maybe take a breather and have a try again. But of course this is more than just a battle between McLaren and Benetton. This is a battle between co-users of Ford engines. And Prost getting right onto Schumacher's tail, but Schumacher's got the inside line. And Prost is through. Prost has made it. And that was Renault power that did that for Alain Prost. He came very cleanly out of the hairpin, but he just powered his way past. Now Senna will have seen that in his mirrors, and he, I'm sure, will be aware that Prost has outdragged Schumacher, and of course Schumacher has the best Ford engine with the air valves, the official works engine, and McLaren's only have a customer engine which is reputed to be some 20 horsepower down, and that will worry Senna. He will not want Prost right on his tail through the hairpin. So watch Senna now when they're together. He'll be trying to put a bit of space between himself and the Williams, every time they reach the last corner, and Prost is really pressing.
Indeed he is. The two rivals who have fought each other in the same type of car for McLaren, in different kinds when Prost was racing for Ferrari and Senna was racing for McLaren, are up front again. It's just like old times. Let's hope it doesn't end like some of their races have in old times before. But Senna, Prost and Schumacher dominate the South African Grand Prix ahead of Carl Wendlinger, who is still fourth but dropping back slightly in the Sauber. Alesi, Blundell and Brundle. But stay with this. See, Senna is noticeably faster out of that corner. The McLaren people have been working very, very hard on the active suspension of their car, which is controlled by this complicated computer system. Incidentally, I know there have been rumours in the UK that because of Prost speaking out of turn about the governing body last year, there is Wendlinger in the pits, and that means to say that Jean Alesi goes up to 4th position, Mark Blundell goes up to 5th place, Brundle goes to 6th. Both the British drivers are in the top 6, and Hill is still 11th.
Now, it's interesting that the leaders are lapping some 2 seconds per lap slower than they were about half a dozen laps ago. Now, what I'm trying to work out and having some difficulty with is whether that's because Senna is just taking it easy and driving defensively and therefore not interested in a lap time, or whether in fact the tyres have deteriorated a bit in their performance. Now, Prost is well placed this time. He's making an attack, but Senna's getting in very quickly into the hairpin. Prost is well placed. He's going to make an attack.
He is attacking, but Senna is cool, calm and collected as ever, has got exactly the right position on the track to block Alain Prost. There's nothing unfair or illegal about that. Senna is leading the race. He is entitled to go wherever he wants to on the track, provided he doesn't indulge in blatant weaving to keep the man behind, and he is certainly not doing that. You've only got to make your car half an inch wider and it's enough. But all the time, Alain Prost is pressing, and all the time Ayrton Senna knows that Prost has a power advantage from the V10 Renault engine. And all the time Prost knows that right behind him is Michael Schumacher. What a race, top 3. Jonathan Palmer, a quick update please on Wendlinger, because it's all action at the front.
Well, a bit more disappointment for Sauber, I'm afraid. That was a 10-second penalty that Wendlinger came in for. He was judged to have made a jump start.
Thank you again. Well, that's a fairly new rule, but Wendlinger got away a bit too well. And the rule is that you are shown a flag, you have to come in, stop for 10 seconds and accelerate away again. He's now in 8th position, is Carl Wendlinger, behind Riccardo Patrese's Benetton, and the top 8 as you watch the race for the lead. And Ayrton Senna goes through to complete his 15th lap. Senna leads Prost, Schumacher is 3rd, Alesi is 4th, and Prost is having another go.
Interesting to watch Senna's technique at that final hairpin as they come around to complete the lap. At the moment, he's coming into it with just enough lead over Prost that he's prepared to go in really quickly into the corner and try and do the whole corner quickly. Now, if Prost gets a bit closer to him as they come in under braking, it may be that Senna will brake a bit more, go into the corner more slowly than usual, and then hit the power unexpectedly early. And that is a technique for getting the jump on another driver. He'll be working every trick he can think of, and he's got a few.
And the fastest man on the track thus far is Alain Prost, but there's hardly anything in it, as you can see. Alain Prost has made the fastest lap of the race so far. And it's Senna leading Prost, leading Schumacher, the first 3. Alesi's 4th. Blundell and Brundle are 5th and 6th. Riccardo Patrese is in 7th place. Wendlinger is 8th. Berger is 9th. Alliot is 10th. And Alain Prost is trying so very, very hard to be not number 2, which he is now, both in number and on the track, but number 1.
Yes, and I think I'm beginning to get the impression that this 2 seconds a lap off their full speed pace that they're doing is because Senna is positioning himself tactically on the track, not interested in a fast lap time. And of course this is allowing Michael Schumacher to stay with the group, and Prost only has to position himself wrongly on the track, and Schumacher is going to gobble up the hole if he can. He's a little bit too far behind to attack at the moment, but he put his nose alongside Prost's rear wheel just now, and he'll certainly be looking for any sort of a mistake or opening.
I can hardly believe my eyes, because Ron Dennis, the head man of the McLaren organisation, only finalised his engine deal with Ford in December, and in that time the new car has been designed and built to take the new engine, which, as James and I have both said, has got less horsepower than Benetton, and Prost goes for it. Senna moves across, Prost goes to the right. Prost was maybe trying to serve a dummy to Senna, in which case the Brazilian outthought him. We're on lap 17 now, and because Senna is adopting this deliberate ploy, as James has said, Schumacher is right up with them. But I'm saying I can hardly believe my eyes, because this McLaren, which has been produced after an enormous amount of work by everybody at the McLaren factory at Woking and their associates who do the tag electronics, is really doing the business. And if this doesn't persuade Senna to stay in Grand Prix racing, I would be very, very disappointed indeed.
I must say, the Williams looks very, very impressive. The power of the Renault, and that's Hill going off with Zanardi.
Well, Damon Hill's race finishes. Damon, of course, as I said, was under enormous pressure. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he's been trying a little bit too hard to make up for that spin at the beginning of the race. Damon has had problems under pressure in the past, I remember in Formula 3000, but for whatever reason, maybe he was trying too hard to get... here's a replay. Now, there goes the Larousse, and as you can see, Damon Hill was already in front of Zanardi, and I do apologise if anybody thought I was saying anything against Hill, because it was clearly Zanardi trying to dive through on the inside of Damon's Williams, Zanardi in the Lotus, that caused the problem.
Indeed it was, but we weren't to know until we saw the replay, Murray. But yes, that was a bit over-ambitious by Zanardi, and he locked his brake, and once the brake's locked, you lose braking effect, and he had nowhere to go but to slide into Hill's Williams. Disappointing debut for Williams. As Prost gets inside Senna, Senna slams the door right across Prost's bows. But I was saying just before that incident, now we see from, I think, is this Prost's Williams? That's the view from Prost's car. And I must say, the Williams is looking extremely impressive in Prost's hands. It's got quite a big acceleration advantage over the McLaren and the Benetton. We saw it power its way past Schumacher earlier, and also the car looks very good out of corners. He's getting the power on very well and smoothly with Prost, and one would think that if he can get in front, he may go away. Certainly the race will speed up a lot. Whether Senna's got much a response for it, I don't know, but Prost is looking as if he will eventually get past. The Williams seems to have enough power that I think Senna's going to be hard pushed to fend him off for the rest of the race. Possible pit stops to come. Senna, of course, will be interested in keeping this race as slow as he can in order to not have to pit.
Well, even if Alain Prost does succeed in getting past Senna in front of him, and Senna is now starting to close up on the tail-enders in front of him, but even if he does get past, it's going to be a tremendous tribute to the McLaren team that they've done so well with this new car, because Williams, after all, are using the FW15C, which is a new version of last year's car, so they've had continuity in development. They've also had an enormous amount of testing over the winter, and McLaren had hardly any. So the honours at the moment have to go to McLaren. They're leading the race with a new car with less development. Alain Prost pushing hard all the time, and they're coming up to one of the new Lola Ferraris. It is that of Michele Alboreto. Senna laps him. Prost goes through and laps Michele Alboreto, the Italian veteran who has driven for so many teams, and Michael Schumacher has also gone past Alboreto, so the first three now on their 20th lap. Michele Alboreto on his 19th lap. Alesi is still 4th. Blundell is still 5th. Brundle is still 6th. You can see Ayrton Senna's McLaren Ford ahead of us. We are in Alain Prost's Williams Renault. In 7th place is Riccardo Patrese in the second Benetton. 8th is Carl Wendlinger fighting his way back after that 10-second penalty. 9th is Gerhard Berger in the second Ferrari. 10th is Philippe Alliot, back in Grand Prix racing after a 2-year sports car stint with Peugeot, and he's driving the Larousse Lamborghini. But let's stay with Alain Prost. Now we look down. Berger right up behind Prost. There's the first 3, all in the same picture. And there's only 8/10 of a second in time between Ayrton Senna leading and Alain Prost in second position. Prost has put up the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 20.701, and that is some 2.5 seconds outside Nigel Mansell's 1992 lap record. But I remind you, the cars this year have narrower tyres, narrower wings, less downforce, but on the other hand, more engine power, more sophisticated electronics. Look at this is terrific stuff. Past Damon Hill's broken Williams, past Zanardi's broken Lotus, and now Prost is going for it. Right up alongside Ayrton Senna, who just moves across casually, blocks Alain Prost. And look at that. 2 British drivers, 5th and 6th in the Ligier. Now this is tremendously exciting and encouraging too. Watch Senna, Prost and Schumacher, and I will tell you that the reconstituted Ligier team, as Prost is now on the inside, this is his opportunity. Alain Prost leads the Grand Prix very briefly, only to lose the lead immediately again to Ayrton Senna. A magnificent scrap between the 2 best drivers in the race, and Schumacher's got nothing to be ashamed of either.
Yes, and he was playing his opportunist role then, looking for something as Prost tries again. And Senna, of course, had the inside line for the left-hander of that S-bend, that double corner, and that was crucial. So Senna has been given notice by Prost very firmly of what he's up against, and Schumacher is pressing.
And they're coming up on Luca Badoer, the 92 Formula 3000 European champion in the second Lola Ferrari. Now, Badoer is far less experienced in Grand Prix. Indeed, this is his first Grand Prix than Alboreto is. And it's just conceivable that Badoer might not be able to let all 3 of them through in one move. He may not be watching his mirrors as closely as he should do. We're soon going to... Oh, he's into the pits. That's taken care of it. Luca Badoer pits as the leaders come through to complete lap 22.
Yes, and behind this group of 3 is Prost nibbling away at Senna's heels again. Behind these 3, Jean Alesi in the Ferrari is fending off a strenuous attack from Marc Blundell in the Ligier, who is supported by Martin Brundle, who's right behind him. They're in 5th and 6th place and trying to find a way around Alesi's Ferrari. Alesi's pretty good at keeping a wide car, though.
I'm glad I'm not the producer, because he's got a real dilemma now to stay with the front 3 with the lead maybe changing, or to move to the second 3, the 4th, 5th and 6th battle between Alesi, Blundell and Brundle. Well, we're with the leaders, and Michael Schumacher, who is one of the youngest drivers in the race, only 24 years old, is getting invaluable experience now because of the steady pace of Ayrton Senna, who's controlling the race from the front, making it very difficult for Prost to get past him, or making it impossible for Prost to get past him. It's enabling Schumacher to hold on to, and that's, well, as you can see, it's one of the Minardis, but whether it's Barbazza or Christian Fittipaldi, I don't know. I can't see the number, I can't see the driver. I guess it's more likely to be Fabrizio Barbazza, who is, yes, it is Fabrizio Barbazza, who is out of the race, incidentally.
And Prost having another go. Prost is alongside Senna, nose in front, and Prost is through. So Alain Prost takes the lead in the South African Grand Prix. Now, let's see what speed he's got to get away. I anticipate this race will speed up quite a bit now, and we'll see how much more speed Senna can find.
Well, just as a datum point, the lap speeds were around 122.2 before, and now Schumacher goes through. Now, has Senna got a problem? It's most unlike the Brazilian to yield voluntarily, first to Prost and then to Schumacher. Well, what possible answer is that Senna is going to come into the pits, I presume, for tyres, but we don't know for sure. There's 6 retirements, incidentally. Yes, we have news that it's definitely for tyres. Ayrton Senna coming in.
Yes, and lots of activity clearing up that accident there from the Hill and Zanardi. So, Ayrton Senna on his way in, and this will be very crucial. And so is Schumacher, so both of them in. Schumacher and Senna. Big pressure on the pit crews now.
This could change the race, because whoever is out first is going to have a big advantage. Senna goes out in 6.8 seconds. And I've missed a big... Yes, Schumacher behind him. So Senna has regained the second place that he temporarily held on that lap. Now, we believe that Alain Prost is coming in. This is the 25th lap. And you can see that Leto in the Sauber is going again.
Yes, and that was nearly 7 seconds for McLaren, according to the official clock that was being captioned there in the corner. And whilst I'd call that a pretty good pit stop, McLaren were down to around about 5 seconds last year, towards the end of last season, and they may be a bit disappointed with that, because if Prost is going for tyres, Williams could beat that and get Prost out ahead of Senna.
And Martin Brundle is missing. Riccardo Patrese has gone through his 6th position now. This is it. This is what could change the course of the race if the Williams team make a mess of Alain Prost's pit stop. It's happened in the past. You remember Nigel Mansell had all sorts of problems. Wheel came off. But it's happened with him with Ferrari too. That's a bit slow. That's 7.6 seconds. Now, is Alain Prost going to exit the pit lane before Ayrton Senna and Schumacher arrive? Yes. Yes. Alain Prost goes through, and there is the Lola behind him. Now that's going to hold up Senna and Schumacher. It's still Prost, Senna and Schumacher, and all 3 of the lead drivers on lap 26 out of 72 have changed tyres. I doubt that they'll have to change again with Schumacher now. Hello, who's that? It's Zanardi. Sandro Zanardi, who you saw have a real coming together in his Lotus with Damon Hill's Williams, and it was Zanardi's fault. Poor Damon out of his first real Grand Prix. And the race order now with the leaders, and you see them all in the same picture. Prost, Senna and Schumacher on lap 26 out of 72. Alesi is 4th, Blundell is 5th, and Patrese is 6th.
Yes, and a new fastest lap of the race for Schumacher on his first flying lap on the fresh set of tyres, and quite clearly the tyres weren't taking it, and that was why they had slowed down. So we'll see what Prost can do.
Well, Prost is now his last lap time, of course, after his tyre stop was 1 minute 35, but he came through in the lead. And I told you the datum point was 1 minute 22. Prost, Senna, Schumacher. No change in positions, no change in intensity. Alesi is still 4th. And Alesi is now only 13 seconds behind Schumacher, but Alesi has not changed tyres. And we certainly didn't expect to see the Ferrari as well up. They've had all sorts of problems over the winter. John Barnard, the rejoined English designer, is doing his best to improve the situation. By the way, Martin Brundle is back in the race. He's in 14th position, a lap behind the leaders. But I was talking about Ferrari. They have active suspension this year, and they have had innumerable problems with it. Now that is Aguri Suzuki, the Japanese driver, and he is in the footwork, and I'm just checking where he is on the circuit. He is in 19th position, well down the field as they go streaming through. And behind him is Jean Alesi. So Alesi in 4th position is coming up to lap Suzuki in the footwork, and this will give Blundell his opportunity in 5th position. Now there on the right is Suzuki. He's almost a lap behind Jean Alesi, the Frenchman in the Ferrari. It's Derek Warwick, I apologise, it's Derek Warwick, and he is in 15th position. Now, is he going to yield to Jean Alesi in 5th position, who's got Riccardo Patrese not very far behind him? Meantime, up front, of course, the battle between Prost leading, Senna second, 3 seconds now behind the Frenchman, because Alain Prost has just gone round in the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 20.054. That's 2.5 seconds off the lap record, and he is, as you see from the caption, 18.5 seconds ahead of the Scarlet Ferrari with its new livery with the white band of Jean Alesi, who is in 4th position. And Johnny Herbert, the British driver in the Lotus, is in 10th position. He had a very torrid practice because the Lotus team, of whom we were hoping so much, have had a lot of problems with the software of their computer and were unable to get the car set up properly. Alesi pushing as ever, tyres smoking, passes Derek Warwick. That gives Riccardo Patrese the challenge now, because he's got to try and get past the Englishman in the footwork car. Derek Warwick then in 15th position has been lapped by 4th place Jean Alesi. He's soon going to be lapped, I think, by 5th place Riccardo Patrese. And in 6th position behind Riccardo Patrese, it's Mark Blundell. 7th is Wendlinger. 8th is Barrichello. Now, that's a turn up for the book, because Rubens Barrichello is the youngest driver in the race. He's Brazilian. He's driving the Jordan with its brand new V10 Hart engine, and he's the ex-British Formula 3 champion. And if any team needs a break in Grand Prix racing, it's the South African-backed Jordan team, because they had it. Oh, out goes the Larousse of Philippe Alliot, and that makes the 10th retirement, because he joins Babazza, Zanardi, Damon Hill, Michael Andretti and Ivan Capelli. But I was saying, if any team needs a break, it's Jordan after a dreadful 1992.
That's right, and that accident that befell Capelli's car earlier in the race looked like a very, very heavy accident, looked like a very badly damaged car. Capelli we saw walk away from it, so hopefully he's all right. And a new fastest lap for Alain Prost, and Prost now starting to pull away. He's 6.5 seconds clear of Ayrton Senna. And Schumacher still right behind Senna.
What I find fascinating about all this, James, is that Alain Prost is well known for doing no more than he has to do. He's come back in racing after being out for a year. He won't want to show the Williams-Renault hand to McLaren Ford too much. And I'm wondering if he's going to continue to try and pull away and build up an ideal cushion of about 20 seconds compared with the 6 seconds that he's got now, or whether he will just stay where he is.
Yes, I mean, I'm sure he'll build himself a cushion, because you need that. These cars are very complicated. If small things, anything small goes wrong with it towards the end of the race, he'll want that cushion, and that is the professional thing to do. And I should think he'd certainly go for 20 seconds at least before he said that was enough and comfortable enough. It may be still that it's going to be marginal to get to the end of the race on tyres, so he'll be keen as soon as possible, probably when he gets to about 10 seconds away, just to take it easy on the tyres and not over push the tyres, not spin the wheels too much or overheat them. And he can do that and still probably find a way to pull away. With Williams' superiority, I'm afraid it's not much use trying to hide it from the others. It's plain for all to see. There's the battle for second. There was.
Jean Alesi in the pits for tyres. He was in 4th position. And while he's getting out, let me tell you that there are 9 different constructors in the first 10 places, and that is very healthy for Formula 1. And this is healthy too. Senna fighting Schumacher for 2nd place. Alain Prost is clearing off. He's just gone round in 1 minute 19.89. That's another fastest lap, and he is 8 seconds ahead of this battle for second place. But it's Williams leading, McLaren second, Benetton third, Benetton fourth, Ferrari fifth, Ligier sixth, Sauber seventh, Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan is in 8th position, 9th is Fittipaldi in the Minardi, 10th is Johnny Herbert in the Lotus. That's how different it is on the Grand Prix in South Africa, the first of the year. But now it looks as though things are starting to settle down, and we're not yet at half distance. Half distance is 36 laps, and we're on lap 32 now, with Alain Prost nearly 10 seconds ahead of this battle between Senna and Schumacher. So the Renault engine is underlying the dominance that it established in 1992 over the Ford V8, and for that matter, the Ford V8 in the McLaren is showing the way to the Ford V8 in the Benetton of Michael Schumacher. But Ayrton Senna would appear now to be settling for second position, over 10.5 seconds behind Alain Prost. And the question is, can the charging young German Michael Schumacher, who carries the number 5 this year, get ahead of the Brazilian? And a word about Kyalami, because this is not the old Kyalami. It's a completely new circuit which was used for the first time in 1991 after the expenditure of a great deal of money, which has produced a magnificent track with superb facilities in the form of pits, garages, grandstands, all the things you want. And that's a Ferrari there. And it's the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger. And Gerhard Berger joins the retirees, probably not to... It's Alesi! My apologies! Alesi out of the race. Well, I was going to say if it was Berger, he wouldn't be too unhappy because he's had so many problems with the active suspension. And there, thank you very much, is Gerhard Berger.
Yes, the two Ferraris have been running different active suspension systems this weekend as Prost goes by to lap Berger, and Berger's got the newer and supposedly better system on, but it hasn't worked properly all weekend. It's been leaking and they haven't been able to get the hydraulic pressure that they need for it to work properly, but that's the one they're going to concentrate on developing, and they feel they've done some useful test mileage at least.
Well, we're with Ayrton Senna now, and you can I don't know whether you can see Prost ahead, but while I'm talking about Prost, I have to tell those of you who don't already know that he's actually driving under a cloud at the moment, because on account of speaking out against the governing body during the winter, he's facing a disciplinary body of the World Council on the 18th of this month, and it's not inconceivable that he will be suspended. If he was suspended, in my opinion, it would be a tragic reflection on Formula One, especially now that Senna is back, because we need the racing of the kind that Senna and Prost have been giving us this afternoon. Senna has dropped back, admittedly, but remember that this McLaren is only in its initial stages. There is an enormous amount of development potential there, particularly with the electronics. And if McLaren got the slightly more powerful engine from Ford that Schumacher behind Senetton has got, they could be up with the Williams team. And it would be a great pity if Prost wasn't driving.
It would indeed, and I certainly agree with that. If the World Council deem that Prost's behaviour is worthy of punishment, then I sincerely hope that they fine him or find some other way than to suspend him from racing. I think that would be counterproductive for Grand Prix racing. Senna got just a little bit of breathing space ahead of Schumacher, but they're a long, long way behind Prost.
Well, I'm down in the pits now with Ivan Capelli, who looks in relatively good shape after that enormous accident that he had in the first lap or two of the race. Ivan, can you tell us what happened?
Just that in corner 11, before just the pit entrance, the car understeered quite a lot, and then I was over the dirty part of the circuit. The car started to slide, and then I made a big spin in that corner, and unfortunately I was really hard, going very hard against the wall.
What sort of speed do you think you were doing at the time? There looked to be a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's 5th gear flat, so it's above over 200, I think, kilometers per hour.
Ivan, thank you.
And as Jonathan hands back to me, the car that stops in front of me to retire is Carl Wendlinger's Sauber, so he becomes the 9th retirement of the 26 starters for the South African Grand Prix. Well, the mice are getting at the machinery a bit. The runners are being depleted, but the top 3 are pressing on, and particularly the 2nd and 3rd, and you're looking at them now. Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher. There are 4 Germans standing in front of me with enormous German flags who are nearly going berserk every time Michael Schumacher passes in their efforts to attract his attention by waving the German flag at him. I just hope for his sake that they don't attract his attention, because the corner after the start and finish straight is a very quick one indeed. And here he is, Michael Schumacher in the blue and white helmet and in the yellow and green Benetton Ford, still pushing. And Ayrton Senna, of course, looking for World Championship points. We don't know whether he is going to be racing in Grand Prix after this one. It depends on all sorts of negotiations, not entirely disassociated with money, I might say. But assuming that he is, he wants every World Championship point that he can get. 3 times World Champion already. He would get 6 points for the 2nd position that he's holding now. And Alain Prost would get 10 points for the position he's holding now. But we are now on the half-distance lap with 9 retirements out of the 26 starters, with Prost constantly increasing his lead, and he's just put up another fastest lap, 1 minute 19.729. And there is the battle, the continuing battle between Senna and Schumacher, crossing the line, and they are now 16 and a half seconds behind Alain Prost, lapping some 7/10, 8/10 of a second slower than the Frenchman in the lead. And Jonathan Palmer has been dashing about all over the place. Now he's got news for us about Alesi's retirement in the Ferrari.
It has been a pretty busy time down here. I've just spoken to the Ferrari engineers, and after that great run from Alesi, it was the active suspension that failed and stopped him.
Well, it's no great surprise, because as both James and I have been saying, Ferrari are experimenting with active suspension by having not one system but 2, and ringing the changes, giving Berger one and Alesi the other. Well, a bit of what might be dodgy news from Kyle Army. It is visible. I can feel it getting more humid, and as I look out of the commentary box window, I can see that there's a bit of dark cloud developing in the sky. There was a remote chance of rain, which I hope doesn't hit the circuit, but if it does, it's certainly going to spice things up, because everybody would have to come in and put on a set of wet Goodyears that have this asymmetrical tread pattern, which makes it a pretty exciting tyre to look at, as this is exciting too. No change, and Schumacher is pushing. If you're in that position, James, and you've got dirty air billowing about in front of you and a very difficult course to pass on, what has to be your plan?
Well, it's extremely tiring and stressful to drive right up to somebody's exhaust, and for this reason one tends to make one's attacks in sort of bursts. But Schumacher is young and strong, and he seems to be consistently trying to harry Senna. Of course, he's buoyed by the fact that he feels he's got a chance of forcing a mistake and getting through, and he's looked like he might get through a couple of times. So,
Damon, that looked a pretty unfortunate debut for you on your first Grand Prix, but particularly unlucky to be taken out pretty clearly, as far as we could see, by Zanardi. What happened then, first of all?
Well, first of all, I put myself in a situation where I was in, in the field mixing it, and of course those sort of things can happen. So, unfortunately, Zanardi just lost his braking, just hit me from behind, and that put me out.
Now let's just go back to the first lap. The first or second corner already had a bit of a half spin. Was that how it seemed to you?
Well, I think it was a 360 actually, but I mean, that's a mistake, and that's my inexperience, I suppose. But pretty pissed off with myself.
And after that, how was the car going?
Yeah, it was good, but it's impossible to overtake. I was quicker than the people in front, but I just couldn't get any. There's not enough of a straight to really get a toe, so you just have to bide your time. And I was just sitting there thinking, well, look, this is impossible to overtake here. I'm just going to have to stick with it and wait for Alio to make a mistake or something. And then I got hit from behind.
Very hard luck, Damon. Thanks for your time.
Well, I think I'm going to be very sick after the South African Grand Prix. I have eaten so much humble pie already here about how well McLaren are doing after I'd said I didn't think they were going to do very well. And now Christian Fittipaldi, who I was tipping in the Minardi team to be further back because of his comparative inexperience, is in fact in 6th position. And the race order now on this, the 19th lap, of course, is still Prost, Senna and Schumacher.
And 7 seconds behind Christian Fittipaldi, in 7th place is Johnny Herbert, who's been quietly picking up places.
Johnny Herbert goes out. Once again, the unfortunate Englishman has to retire. And once again, and this has happened so many times in 1992, he will be greeted in the pit lane. He was in 7th place. He'll be greeted in the pit lane by Jonathan Palmer for an interview. And we'll have to learn how to keep Jonathan and Johnny Herbert away. But now on lap 40 in this 72-lap South African Grand Prix, Alain Prost is leading Ayrton Senna by 18 seconds. Senna is just a car's length or so ahead of Schumacher. Up into 4th place has come Riccardo Patrese. So the Benettons are 3rd and 4th, and Patrese, who says he still doesn't really know the car after being with Williams for so long, is up into that 4th place. Mark Blundell in the Ligier Renault is 5th. Fittipaldi is in 6th position. Johnny Herbert. Schumacher out. That's Michael Schumacher out of the race.
Well, he spun. It looks as if he stalled the engine. Yep, steering wheel off, so... end of the day's work for Michael Schumacher.
Yes, because if you're pushed... here, this is what happened. Schumacher trying to take Ayrton Senna. Now let's see if the Brazilian moved across. Indeed he did. There's going to be a big argument about this. This, if you look at it, is reminiscent of the Senna and Prost coming together at the opening of the Japanese Grand Prix. And did they touch? Here's a replay. Yes, they did. Well, it is... I always hate to apportion blame because only the people in the cockpit knew what happened. But from your point of view, James, would you say that there was any blame to either driver?
Well, I think Schumacher could be justified in feeling that he'd got enough inside Senna, maybe to have made Senna make room. But the problem is, you know who you're dealing with, and it was pretty predictable that Ayrton Senna would stick to his line and just come into the corner. Schumacher was trying to retract his move as it happened, and he just got his front wheel biffed by Senna's rear. Senna will claim, therefore, that he was the one who was ahead, and they'll argue it for a long time. But the fact of the matter is, it was a racing accident, and it's really the nature of the circuit, because quite honestly, if you're going to get past anybody here in that situation, it is inevitably a risk. Schumacher took the risk, and it didn't pay off this time.
Which means to say, of course, that his teammate Riccardo Patrese moves up into 3rd position in his first race for the Benetton Ford team, as Ayrton Senna closes up on his ex-teammate Gerhard Berger, who is in 6th position in the Ferrari, and he's about to be lapped by the 2nd place man Ayrton Senna. and I can't see Gerhard making it difficult for Ayrton to go through, because he knows he's miles an hour faster. Indeed, he didn't make it difficult for Ayrton Senna to go through. So the 6th place man has now been lapped by the 1st and 2nd place men, who are, of course, on lap 42, Alain Prost leading Ayrton Senna. There is the Frenchman, and there's a 22.5-second gap now. So much for my theory that he might back off and hide his hand from McLaren, with Patrese in 3rd position. In 4th position it's Blundell, 5th is Fittipaldi, and 6th is Gerhard Berger.
Yes, and a really marvellous race for Mark Blundell. He's up to 4th place. He qualified well in the Ligier and in 8th place. And his first Grand Prix since 1991, when he was in the less competitive Brabham team compared to the Ligier team. And this is really a tremendous opportunity for... And is that Schumacher returning, or is it Patrese? Patrese in for tyres. There's a little gaggle with Prost right behind them. He'll be taking that. He'll be pretty careful with them, because you can see they're all looking at each other and busy with their own race. And he's got a 24.5-second lead, so he's not in any hurry at all. He just wants to get through safely.
He passes Derek Warwick, who is now in 8th position, and with all these retirements, perhaps a quick review on what the positions are would help. Well, there you can see the top 6. Prost, Senna, Patrese, Blundell. Christian Fittipaldi moves up into 5th position. He's ahead of Gerhard Berger's Ferrari. And in 6th position it is Martin Brundle. 7th is Alboreto. 8th is Derek Warwick. JJ Leto has got going again in the Sauber and is in 9th position. Prost, well, he's threading his way through the traffic now. He's got a nice rhythm, 1 minute 22.880, and he's lapping very consistently, lap after lap in that time. And what a wonderfully triumphant return to Grand Prix racing after having been out since the Australian Grand Prix in 1991, when he was fired by Ferrari for criticising the Ferrari top management. Derek Warwick loses it, and almost loses it. The footwork, and incidentally it's last year's car, to be fair to Derek, and it stepped sideways momentarily and allowed Eric Comas to go through. Eric Comas in the LaRousse Lamborghini is in 11th position, and sure enough we have Palmer and Herbert together again. Jonathan?
Johnny, I can't quite believe this, and I'm sure you can't either. Yet another very strong showing, up to 7th in the Lotus, and it stopped. What happened?
It cut out basically. I'm not sure. As I accelerated out, it just cut out. It would keep going at very, very low revs. Every time you actually put a foot on the throttle, it just wouldn't want to go, and then eventually it died anyway. But it's nice to see you in 93.
Thank you very much. And how was the car going anyway?
Not terribly well. We've had a few problems for some reason since we've left England. We've lost some of the grip that we had when we was back home. We haven't quite worked that out why, for some reason, because I was so optimistic we'd have a good race here, but the car just hasn't quite been up to it. But well, we're going to work on it. I know the grip's there. I've just got to find it.
Well, try and stay away from me for a few races, all right?
I'll try, yeah, definitely.
Well, nothing can put Johnny Herbert down. He's ever cheerful. He's always got a smile on his face. And there you can see those rain clouds I was talking about, as Michele Alboreto and Eric Comas scrap.
And after Patrese's tyre stop, now Mark Blundell is only 2.5 seconds behind him. So Blundell now pursuing Patrese for 3rd place.
And the race order is Prost, 23 seconds ahead of Senna. Patrese 3rd, Blundell is in 4th position, Fittipaldi is 5th, Berger is 6th, and both Fittipaldi and Berger have been lapped. 7th is Martin Brundle in the 2nd Ligier. In 7th position is Michele Alboreto. In 9th position is Derek Warwick. 10th is Leto. 11th is Comas. So although you just saw Eric Comas, and there he is in the LaRousse Lamborghini, number 20, past Michele Alboreto, he is actually behind him as far as race distance is concerned, because Alboreto in the Lola is in 8th place. And there you see the battle between Mark Blundell in the Ligier Renault, with behind him JJ Leto back in the race, and Blundell is chasing the Benetton Ford of Riccardo Patrese in 4th place. Oh, it's Michael Schumacher. He's
Michael.
Oh, it's Patrese, and Schumacher is with
No, I've lost him,
Jonathan.
I think. Michael? No, too late.
Sorry, I was getting confused. I had a message, and Schumacher was with Jonathan Palmer and has now left him. It's always difficult to get a racing driver who's just come out of the heat of the race in the cockpit to stay on for an interview. It's the last thing that is in his list of priorities. But Mark Blundell is driving a magnificent race. He's scored 1 World Championship point in the past, driving for the Brabham team. Last year, of course, he only drove in 1 race and he won it. And what a race to win, because it was the 24-hour race at Le Mans, driving for the Peugeot team. And Alain Prost goes on his victorious way, now on lap 47, as we look at JJ Leto, who disappeared from the race earlier on but has now rejoined. And there is Blundell, ahead of Blundell in the Ligier Renault. He's got the best engine. He's got the Williams semi-automatic gearbox, which Ligier have done a deal with Williams to use. He's got the same tyres, of course. The chassis has been very much changed from last year. It has a new suspension and, of course, new aerodynamics. And Mark Blundell is really going for it. This is the battle for 3rd position. Race leader, Prost. 2nd position, Senna. And this is the battle for 3rd. Patrese and this man, Mark Blundell.
And he's going very well indeed, and it's that Patrese off. And Patrese had the advantage of fresh rubber, I was about to say. He goes off. Can he keep the car moving? Because, no, he looks like he's beached it. No, stuck in the gravel. That's normally the way.
Well, Riccardo Patrese overdoes it. He's been saying all the time here in South Africa that he doesn't know the car well enough. He's done a fair amount of testing, but when you've been with a team as long as Riccardo Patrese had been with Williams, and is under the psychological pressure of having been, quotes, released, close quotes, by the Williams team, it can show, and it appears to be showing now. And that means to say, of course, that up into 3rd position, here he is, Mark Blundell. Up into 4th place goes Fittipaldi, up into 5th place goes Berger, up into 6th position goes Martin Brundle. So Cyril Derouvre, the very wealthy Frenchman who bought the Ligier team from Guy Ligier himself over the winter, must be absolutely beside himself with excitement, because both his cars, both his English drivers are in the top 6, and Derouvre has been pilloried in France for having the effrontery to employ 2 English drivers in what has always traditionally been a 100% French team. And Mark Blundell is showing that Cyril made the right decision. 3rd position, but he is some...
Michael, that seemed to be a big incident with Senna. Can you tell us what happened?
I will talk to you later, not now, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much and goodbye, says Michael Schumacher, while Jonathan is desperately on everybody's behalf trying to talk to him. But as ever, Michael Schumacher is scrupulously polite, probably not all that cheerful, in view of the way he appeared to have been taken off by Senna, and I'm using my words very carefully indeed. But Alain Prost is now sailing away. It's lap 49. He's 30 seconds ahead of Senna. This is the battle for 3rd.
And Derek Warwick has moved up into 8th place, having passed Michele Alboreto. So a steady drive from Derek in the old footwork car. There's a new car on the stocks, but it had rather an inauspicious start at Silverstone last Monday. Derek drove it, and after 2 laps the rear suspension broke, and he had an almighty accident going end over end, but fortunately he was all right, and still looking forward to getting the car built and strengthened up and getting some testing in the new car.
Now this battle on the track between Blundell and Leto is not for places that matter. Mark Blundell is securely in 3rd place. JJ Leto, of course, in the Sauber, has rejoined the race and is down in 10th position. And at the moment, there are only 11 cars left out of the 26 who started. It's been a real race of attrition. And Alain Prost, on his 50th lap out of 72, looks like winning the South African Grand Prix. Ayrton Senna is 30 seconds behind him, and Senna is 41 seconds ahead of Blundell, with Fittipaldi in 4th place. Gerhard Berger is 5th, and only the top 3 are on the same lap. 6th is Mark Blundell. Then 2 laps behind the leaders is Derek Warwick, who is in 7th place. Michele Alboreto in the Lola, who is in 8th position. JJ Leto is in 9th place now, and Eric Comas is in 10th place. And that is Philippe Alliot, the Frenchman, who drove for Peugeot in sports car racing for the last 2 years. It's not a deaf aid it's got in his ear. It is the earpiece from the pits to car radio system, which is still legal for 1993 but will not be legal in 1994 because there are enormous changes being made. Well, let's concentrate on Mark Blundell, who is driving an absolute stormer of a race. This is only his 15th Grand Prix, and he's only finished in the points once. Hardly his fault, because the Brabham team he was driving for before, for financial reasons, had got a very poor car. But this is the man, as we look now, Christian Fittipaldi in 4th position. And Christian is the nephew of the great Emerson Fittipaldi, double world champion, Indy 500 winner, USAC champion, the American Championship, and he's the son of ex-Grand Prix driver Wilson Fittipaldi, and I will be going to him in a state of contrition and apology after this race. He's in 4th position, and he's driving the new Minardi with the Ford V8 engine. Last year they used the Lamborghini engine, and they made what seemed to have been for them a sensible decision to change to the Ford V8 to join Lotus and McLaren and Benetton using the Ford Cosworth engine. And he's one of the youngest drivers in the race. He's only 23, and it's only his 11th Grand Prix. And I remember when he scored his first point in Japan last year. That's a landmark for a Grand Prix driver. The first landmark is to finish in a Grand Prix, and the second is to score a point, and Fittipaldi did that in his first season by finishing in 6th position in Japan. Well, now he's in a better car, and he comes from a racing family. Extremely nice young man, got a very cool head on his young shoulders, and he's driving very sensibly indeed. And this race is great encouragement for the Ford Cosworth technicians. Now, here is Ayrton Senna, right up behind 7th place man, Derek Warwick, who is followed some way back by Michele Alboreto. So Senna is about to lap Warwick again because he has lapped him before. Derek looks in his mirrors and moves across and lets Ayrton Senna through. And this is the Brazilian. You can just see a touch of his yellow and green Brazilian colours helmet in the wing mirror there. Senna goes through. Derek Warwick, who stands a chance of being in the points in this race, because I wouldn't be at all surprised if one of the drivers ahead of him has a problem and falls out of it. And if you'd said to Derek before this race began, I forecast that you will score in the South African Grand Prix in terms of points, he would quite vigorously have contested that statement, because he's in the old FA13 footwork Mugen car. And there is Leto going through the picture, followed by Mark Blundell, who is about to be lapped by Alain Prost, who is on his 53rd lap. So watch the 3 times world champion, Alain Prost, number 2. The man who's won more Grand Prix than anybody else in the history of Grand Prix racing. 44 of them so far. And why, you may say, did Damon Hill carry 0 as his number and Alain Prost carry number 2? The answer, of course, is that Nigel Mansell is probably, in fact I believe, watching this race interestedly at Surfers Paradise, is the world champion of 1992, is sadly not racing in Formula 1 this year, and only the world champion can carry number 1. And when Prost was given a choice of whether he could be 2 or 0, he allegedly said, "Who wants to be a 0? I'll have 2, thank you very much." And judging from what happened to the unfortunate Damon Hill carrying the 0 today, Alain Prost may have been right. Well, he's lapped everybody except Ayrton Senna that is left in this South African Grand Prix. Last year's race was enormously processional, with Mansell leading Patrese and Patrese leading Senna, who finished in that order, first, second and third. There was a bit of a battle for 4th, 5th and 6th places. Alesi did very well there. In the end, it was Schumacher, Berger and Johnny Herbert who finished 4th, 5th and 6th last year. But Prost must just now be keeping his fingers crossed for reliability.
And a smoky Lamborghini there. And that's Eric Comas, and these cars have gone pretty well all weekend. Qualified well, he and Alio. But that can't last. He's been smoking for a few laps, in fact. But I should think he's losing oil, and that's got to blow up sooner or later.
Well, I hope he's not losing much oil, because if he is, and it's on the racing line, it's going to make things slightly difficult, to put it mildly, for the people who are still in the race. And I would expect there to be a message from his pits to tell him to come in, because he's not going to finish this race from the look of things. And yes, the smoke is getting heavier and heavier. I was going to suggest it might just be an oil leak onto the exhaust pipe that's making the smoke. It still might be, I suppose, but well, let's see whether he comes in. Oh, no, he doesn't. He goes on. Now, is he going to get a black flag?
His pit have giving him the in arrow in a big way, so his pit are calling him in. And no doubt getting him on the radio as well. So let's see if he comes in next time round.
We've got quite a lot of laps left in this race, and we haven't got many cars, so I hope Comas isn't laying oil on which people will go off, because we need to have a few finishers in this race. At the present moment, with Comas still running, there are 10 people. Prost, Senna, Blundell, first, second and third. Fittipaldi, Berger and Brundle in 4th, 5th and 6th places. Those are the point scorers. Derek Warwick is 7th in the footwork. Alboreto battling round in the Lola Ferrari, which handles badly because the car has had virtually no testing, and they need to go back to Huntingdon and make some new parts for the rear suspension to get the balance right and get the aerodynamics right. But nevertheless, Michele Alboreto is battling on in 8th position, 2 laps down, as is JJ Leto, who is in 9th place. Comas is still 10th, 3 laps down, and those are the only runners left. So there are 16 retirements. Into the pits he comes, and I am sure to retire, in which case that will be just 9 of them left. We've got Capelli out, Michael Andretti out from his first Grand Prix, Damon Hill out as a result of that spin, Zanardi and Herbert out as the result of their coming together. Philippe Alliot is out in the Larousse, John Alesi out in the Ferrari, Wendlinger in the Sauber, Schumacher in the Benetton, Patrese in the Benetton, and now Eric Comas in the Larousse Lamborghini. Well, we expected it to be different in the South African Grand Prix this year, and that it has proved to be already. Now, fingers crossed, 9 cars left, and I didn't expect the attrition to be anything like this. It's the sort of thing that you expect at Monaco, but not here to that extent. The Prost still running steadily onwards. Well, at the moment, the 2 top drivers in Grand Prix racing, Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna, continue to run first and second. But they're the only 2 on the same lap, because Marc Blundell in the Ligier Renault will probably be very happy to hold station. There's no point in him speeding up. He's a lap behind the other 2. And to finish 3rd in your first race for a new team would be a very significant achievement, particularly for a chap who's been out of Grand Prix racing for a full year. So the first 3 positions look frozen unless any of them have trouble. Fittipaldi is still in 4th place, and that's the highest he's ever been. That's in the Minardi. Gerhard Berger, by default, is in 5th position, and I don't mean that unkindly, because the Ferrari is probably handling as badly in the race as it did in practice. Harvey Postlethwaite, the team manager, told me this morning that they were marginally better than they had expected to be, but very marginal, he said. Martin Brundle is 6th, Derek Warwick is 7th, 2 laps behind. Michele Alboreto is still in 8th position, and J.J. Leto is in 9th place, and the last runner, well done. You've just seen him passed again by Alain Prost that you're looking at, car number 2.
Yes, well, Prost has cruised on to a huge lead now of nearly 50 seconds, and he's still lapping in round about the 1 minute 20 second dead, just under some of the laps in the late 119s. He's got a fastest lap of the race of 119.4, and I think he's keeping going at a comfortable speed. He's certainly not pushing, and the Williams is looking a lot more superior today in the race than it did in qualifying yesterday.
Well, if Alain Prost wins here, and I say if because although he's now 50 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna, you can never be sure in motor racing. So many times we've seen a secure leader on the last lap have to retire. But if Alain Prost wins this South African Grand Prix, it would be for the first time, because he won in 1986. You can see all those clouds over there. I wouldn't be at all surprised if there's some rain, and Prost also won in 1988.
Yes, you can see those clouds were raining too in the distance. There was rain coming, so the storm clouds are around.
Well, in which case, if rain lands on the track, the 75% distance rule would probably apply. If the race is stopped when it has run more than 75% of the planned distance, which is 72 laps, the results would be declared at that point. And the 75% point was lap 54, and Prost is on lap 59, as is Ayrton Senna here. So if we have rain, and I sincerely hope that we do not, the race would, I'm pretty sure, just be stopped, not restarted, and the results declared as of the time that the race was stopped. So now have a good look at the car when it passes. You'll see it's got some angled panels underneath the driver's head. Yeah, you just see them there. It's some sort of an aerodynamic tweak that McLaren have produced. They presumably kept it on the car because they've decided that it works. As into the pits comes Michele Alboreto. Oh my goodness, not another retirement, please. But from the way he's coming in, it looks as though he's coming in to stay, because if you're coming in with the intention of rejoining, you do not cruise in a leisurely fashion like that. They're going to change the tyres, I think, as the usual precaution. They do that anyway. No, they're not even going to bother to do that. So Michele Alboreto retires from the race, but in the meantime he's got in a good few laps of development of the car, which will help all the technicians at Huntingdon to know exactly what they've got to do to make the car quicker. Their problem is, will they be able to do it by Brazil, which is the second Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time, let alone, well, maybe they might be able to do it for the European Grand Prix, which is at Donington on April the 11th. The first Grand Prix at Donington since 1938, and that will be something to see. But Lola have got a problem. Ayrton Senna would appear not to have, and now it's Prost, Senna, Blundell, the first three. Fourth is Fittipaldi, fifth is Berger, sixth is Brundle, Martin Brundle from Kings Lynn, and so it would seem, oh my goodness, as I say that, out goes Martin Brundle in the Ligier. He's being pushed, so this race may well be finishing because there's no one left on the track. Mark Blundell passes his teammate, and Martin Brundle, who does seem to have all the bad luck in the teams that he drives for, because he had a run of bad luck in the Grand Prix of 1992 when he was driving for the Benetton team. And what's this? Well, Senna, I was about to throw a wobbly and say he looked to me to be going rather slow, and hoping he wasn't the retirement, but he may well be going slower simply because he doesn't need to go any quicker. Alain Prost is on his 61st lap now. Well, Benetton have not had a good South African Grand Prix, and down in the pit lane with Jonathan Palmer is one of the two top men of the team, Flavio Briatore. What has he got to say?
Flavio, Michael was obviously not very happy. He didn't want to talk about what happened out there. Do you know a little bit more than we do?
No, I know exactly what you know. I see, Michael believes Senna doing something for stop him to overtake. I don't believe it because it's part of the game, it's part of the race. But, I'm sorry about that. The car was very good, the engine was good, no problem at all, and maybe it was the little mistake, try overtake Senna in this corner.
Okay, Flavio, thanks.
Well, Flavio Briatore saying what he thought happened. And Alain Prost is now on his 62nd lap. It's a goodly crowd here. The tremendous battle for pole position yesterday brought them out from nearby Johannesburg. Ayrton Senna. Well, the Brazilian is 54 seconds behind Alain Prost now and has very clearly decided that he's going to settle for 6 points for second place. And everybody in the McLaren team will be praying for reliability. That was their big problem in conceptual terms before the race began. The car is so new and so comparatively little tested, and it has such complicated systems that there were natural concerns about whether it would finish its first race. Michael Andretti didn't, but that was no fault of his. And Ayrton Senna cruises on into his 62nd lap, so there's another 10 to go. And Alain Prost goes on his victorious way. What does this mean as far as Williams and McLaren are concerned? Well, it would seem that the Williams FW15C, the new car, although the third version of it, so intense has been the development, has still got very much the edge over everything else. Last year it was Mansell and Patrese that were showing everybody the way. This year it's Prost. Damon Hill, I'm pretty sure, would have climbed his way up through the field had not he been nerfed by Zanardi. But the McLaren with the new car have driven a fine race. Ayrton Senna holding that second position and settling for second place. The Ligiers have done well because they're the only team with both cars in the top 6 places, and somebody preparing for no, it's nobody preparing for a tyre stop. It's Gerhard Berger. Gerhard Berger will be coming in for tyres, and the significant point about that shot was that they were rain tyres, and off goes the Ferrari. This is Berger on car camera. The course is wet or getting slippery. Ferrari have got the message and are bringing Gerhard Berger in for rain tyres on lap 63 out of 72. Now Alain Prost will be tiptoeing his way round the circuit. Is he going to just slow right down with a massive lead over Ayrton Senna and just drive within the limitations of the slick tyres that he's on now, with no tread pattern to cut through the film of water which is building up on the track and give him the grip that he needs? Or is he going to decide, with a 50-second lead, I can afford to come in and take on another set of tyres and play safe? I suspect the latter.
So do I. But it's only raining on one little bit of the circuit at the moment, I think, because if at all, and it's not, there's no rain here looking out of our window, and it may be that we just caught the edge of a shower. And looking around, I can't see the rain in the background there, so that's some distance away. And And that was oil on the circuit. I think that may have been... it was a trail of oil there, possibly from the Lamborghini, the Rus Lamborghini when it went in. Well, the circuit looks okay to me.
Well, there are 8 laps to go, and the man that you're looking at, Alain Prost, has got this 56-second lead now over Ayrton Senna, and can afford, frankly, either to come in for rain tires if he needs to, or to slow right down. He should know where the patch of oil is if he's hit it in the past, and that's Eric Comas's legacy to the South African Grand Prix, it would seem. Mark Blundell still in a secure 3rd place ahead of Christian Fittipaldi. So it's Williams leading, McLaren 2nd, Ligier 3rd, Minardi 4th. The Ferrari of Gerhard Berger that we nearly went off the track and into the tyre wall with just now is in 5th place. In 6th position, now that Martin Brundle has retired, it is Derek Warwick. Derek Warwick out of Grand Prix racing for 2 seasons, having driven for Jaguar and Peugeot. Well, as I said earlier on, if you'd forecast to Derek Warwick that he was going to finish in the points in last year's footwork, which was an overweight car, I think he would have been very surprised, to put it mildly. Incidentally, the new car, the new footwork car, has got a much lighter Mugen V10 engine. It's got all the tricky systems, active suspension, semi-automatic gearbox, traction control. But sadly, when Derek was testing it at very great speed, this is the Williams pit, Richard West on the left and Bradshaw on the right. Frank Williams sitting in his wheelchair just out of sight behind the Goodyear technician. And this is the tense time for the Williams garage, because their car is out in the lead, having shown its superiority in 1993 thus far that it enjoyed in 1992, as Ayrton Senna in 2nd place closes up on Christian Fittipaldi in 4th position. And the Brazilian will be overjoyed if he stays there, and I hope he does, because if many more drop out, we're not going to have 6 cars finishing the race and scoring points. And now on lap 66, Prost, of course, Senna in 2nd position, Blundell 3rd, Fittipaldi 4th, Berger 5th, Warwick in 6th position, JJ Leto 7th, and that's it. 7 cars left. Martin Brundle out of the race. Alain Prost has made the fastest lap so far, 1 minute 19.492, and that compares with last year's lap record of 1 minute 17.5, so it's 1.9 seconds slower. But Prost has not been pressed at all since he took the lead from Ayrton Senna, and he's on those narrower tyres. He has less downforce. He's probably pacing himself very carefully indeed now, with the course being slippery in parts, and Ayrton Senna has now lapped Christian Fittipaldi, who is in 4th place in the Minardi, and I am delighted for Minardi. I'm just trying to... the last point they scored, of course, was the Japanese Grand Prix, which was Christian Fittipaldi's position for them. But this little Italian team is one of the typically sporting, smaller teams that is always struggling for enough funds to keep the team going. And it was to help them that, rightly or wrongly, and it's a matter of considerable debate, all these changes have been made this year to reduce the number of tyres the cars can use, to reduce the amount of practice they can have, to limit the use of the spare car, and also even greater changes next year, which are planned. I don't know whether it's going to happen, but the plan is to ban all the complicated electronics, which some people say drive the car rather than the driver. And Minardi desperately need all the money they can get, and will more than welcome the prize money that they look like getting for 4th position from Christian Fittipaldi, as we watch the doughty Austrian Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari. Well, his perseverance looks like paying off. He is in 5th position. Car number 28 in his 132nd Grand Prix. Gerhard Berger went to Ferrari because he was so overshadowed by Ayrton Senna that he couldn't see himself doing well in the McLaren team. And he therefore went to Ferrari, and he chose just the right time to do it, the Belgian Grand Prix last year. I say he chose just the right time to do it because he is undoubtedly, as a result of that, the highest paid driver in Grand Prix racing. Ferrari desperately needed somebody good to accompany Jean Alesi, having fired Ivan Capelli. They paid top dollar, as it were, to get Gerhard Berger.
Prost's getting more. Prost gets considerably more, but they keep quite quiet about that, in fact. But certainly, but then Prost's deal, to be fair, Murray, was done a long time before that, when there was more money around. But you're quite right in that Gerhard Berger got the last of the big bucks.
Because now there is, I understand, a sort of unofficial limit that the Grand Prix drivers' maximum pay is to be limited to £5 million a year. We should be so lucky. But not many of them get that. $5 million a year, I'm sorry, which makes it even worse for the poor devils, doesn't it? Alain Prost, then, he is the top man in terms of money. He's the top man in terms of the race at the moment, and he's only got laps 69, 70, 71 and 72 to do here at Kyalami. So 4 more 2.65 mile laps after what will be, if he finishes where he is, and I'm always very careful about not saying anybody's going to win the race, because you never know until they see the checkered flag, but it would be a quite incredible return to Grand Prix racing after having been out for the whole of 1992. He kept himself very fit indeed, primarily. Oh, hello, there's a great flash of lightning overhead as I say that. Prost has kept himself very fit indeed, primarily by cycling anywhere, everywhere, up the mountains and down again. But fitness is one thing, race experience is quite another. And when he came back to testing, he found that the first thing that always tends to go when you stop racing a car, your neck muscles, had gone in his case, and he had to work very hard to build them up again. I bet he's glad he's persevered. He's on lap 70 now. Patrick Head is going to be delighted. That is the technical director of the Williams team, who shares responsibility with Frank Williams himself for running what is one of the most successful Grand Prix teams of all time, and who won the Constructors' World Championship by an enormous margin last year. They were 65 points ahead of McLaren, who finished in second place, thanks to those 10 victories. Well, I don't know if you can see the lightning, but it's really flashing in front of the box here. It's getting blacker and blacker, but Alain Prost now still on his 70th lap, which he's very soon to finish, with then only, well, you can see the skies up above, with only 6 or 7 miles to go. Could afford to back right off and really tiptoe round. You saw the car step slightly out of line there, active suspension notwithstanding. And that's another of the things that Alain Prost has had to learn to master, because he didn't have active suspension in Ferrari when he drove for them in 1991, and which Gerhard Berger, going through the picture, does there. And Prost is now on his 71st lap, and it is, we've just had a message from Jonathan Palmer in the pits that it is beginning to rain. And in the immortal words of Jackie Stewart, I can see a few wee spots of rain myself on the track. And that's the helicopter picture, and you can see that it is looking very, very unpleasant indeed in weather terms around Kyalami, between us and the city of gold, Johannesburg. And you can see now the spray coming up from the tyres as Alain Prost dives inside Gerhard Berger. But very soon the Frenchman will be starting his last lap to win, I hope. Well, you can see the rain on the screen now. It is starting to come down very hard indeed. Prost slows down. Gerhard Berger closes right up on him. And behind Gerhard Berger is Derek Warwick. Well, now this is starting to get very exciting for the race. Derek Warwick tries to pass Berger, but don't get too excited about it, because he's 2 laps behind the Austrian in the Ferrari. But you're looking at the first man now, the 5th man now, and the 6th man now. That's Alain Prost, Derek Warwick and Gerhard Berger in respectively Williams, Footwork and Ferrari. And Alain Prost is going to crest the rise. He goes over the line and he is now on his 72nd and last potentially victorious lap.
Yes, well, he can certainly afford to tiptoe right round. I think that's the drive-on circuit, and the rain is really tipping down there, but we're on the last lap. Prost, the secret when riding on slick tyres in these conditions is to change right down in the gearbox. It's the only way a driver can really know that he's going slowly enough. But Prost, with all his experience, you know, the wisdom is, and there's the lightning flicking across the screen, and the clever way to do it is to put the car right down into first gear. And that looks pretty unpleasant, but luckily they haven't got long.
Well, just look at it. Who would have thought that this was going to happen yesterday and the day before when we had the most marvellous weather and nothing like this. But it's only a few yards now for Prost. Let's hope he doesn't do anything daft, but he's most unlikely to with all his experience. He will stay behind JJ Leto and Derek Warwick. Derek Warwick is going to finish in the pits. In the points. Hopefully not in the pits, but there's Berger. Berger is out. Gerhard Berger goes off.
And Leto, I think, is challenging Warwick for his, well, now 5th place.
Oh, my goodness. Prost looks like winning second. Senna looks like finishing second. They're both a lap ahead of Mark Blundell, who is in 3rd place. And Warwick is still staying ahead of Leto as Prost tiptoes out of the last corner of the South African Grand Prix and wins it.
And I think Leto just pipped, in a real photo finish, pipped Warwick on the line for 5th place. But it was difficult to see from the angle we were looking at.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out in my mind how it will go in terms of laps, because Alain Prost had not actually finished the race when Leto and Warwick went across the line. But anyway, here is Ayrton Senna, and there is a very happy Williams garage with Frank Williams himself, knowing that one of his cars has won the South African Grand Prix. A real nail-biter for the first 30 or so laps until Alain Prost got past. Ayrton Senna is coasting home now. He still hasn't finished, actually. Mark Blundell has, because he's a lap adrift, and is in 3rd position.
Yes, and in fact, Warwick, you're quite right, Murray. Whoops, and there goes Derek Warwick, because of course he is still racing. He was, or was still racing. And of course, the fact that he crossed the line just now will register him and just lose one more lap. But that certainly hands the place to JJ Leto.
Ayrton Senna crossing the line probably slower than he's ever crossed it before, but he should worry because in the process he finishes in 2nd place. The South African Grand Prix undeniably won by Alain Prost in his Williams Renault on his Grand Prix return, as the desperately unfortunate Derek Warwick climbs out of his Footwork Mugen. In 2nd position is Ayrton Senna, and in 3rd place, as a very despondent, broken-hearted, I suspect, Derek Warwick walks away from the scene of his crash. Mark Blundell finishes 3rd for Ligier. Ayrton Senna collects, as he so very often does, a Brazilian flag. Christian Fittipaldi has finished in 4th position. Sauber has finished in the points at its very first Grand Prix in the hands of JJ Leto. Here is a replay of Derek Warwick losing his car and a sure 5th position, well, not a sure position, a very likely 5th position, and if it hadn't been 5th it certainly would have been 6th, as he goes across the wet track on his slick no grip tyres, sails across the gravel, over the grass, into the tyre wall. JJ Leto finishes in 6th position in the Sauber, and Berger out and Derek Warwick out. So really only 5 finishers out of 26 starters as Alain Prost tours in.
I would have thought that Derek Warwick had done enough to get 6th place, but that caption has Berger into 6th place, and of course he may well have completed one more lap than Derek Warwick did. Yes, and he was ahead when they were both 3 laps down, but of course Berger crossed the line ahead, so poor old Derek Warwick just missed out on the points there. What a shame.
So how does one summarise the 1993 South African Grand Prix? Well, thumbs up to Williams, hats off to Alain Prost for his 45th Grand Prix victory. He had already won more Grand Prix than anybody else. Now he is extending the gap between himself and the second best. The Williams has proved that it's still the best car in Grand Prix racing, but as Mark Blundell, who's clearly run out of petrol, having finished in 3rd position, and he has finished 3rd, coasts in. So Senna, and that's Riccardo Patrese limping in after his problem. Well, it's certainly been a race of incident. Only 5 finishers out of 21 starters. Williams have proved themselves again, as I was saying, the best car. But this is the danger car, and that's the danger driver. The McLaren Ford and the intrepid Ayrton Senna. And if that combination goes on in Grand Prix racing in 1993, and the McLaren team and their tag technicians and the Cosworth Ford people develop that car, and as Ayrton Senna said yesterday, I hope that whoever allocates the Ford engines will take note of the fact that the McLaren's gone very well indeed, and take note of the fact that our engine is 2 series behind the Benetton. Well, as the McLaren is developed and it potentially gets a better Ford engine, I can see that team being right up with Williams.
Yes, certainly, Murray, it would seem sensible that Ford should provide the best engine for a team that's got a serious chance for the world championship. Certainly, Benetton have the best engine at the moment. There's no reason, hopefully, why the capacity can't be increased to give it to McLaren, because Senna somehow looks to be more of a shot at the title, on the evidence here anyway in qualifying, than the Benetton team. But they went well in the race.
Victory for Prost, 2nd for Senna, 3rd for Blundell. Fine drive from the Englishman and from Christian Fittipaldi 4th and JJ Leto 5th. Gerhard Berger 6th. Ends a very exciting, impactful South African Grand Prix. We go next to Brazil in 2 weeks' time.
On entend aussi les coups de tonnerre maintenant, le ciel toujours aussi menaçant. Philippe Alliot qui regarde l'une des voitures de Benetton qui se trouve là, encastrée. On a eu beaucoup de travail du côté des commissaires. Je crois que l'on a bien travaillé à Kialami après le retour du Grand Prix d'Afrique du Sud dans le championnat du monde l'an dernier. C'était le retour après une longue absence. Voici la voiture de Leto, la Sauber, qui elle aussi doit être tractée maintenant. Chacun va s'abriter. Il y a encore le podium à attendre. Premier Grand Prix qui valait la peine d'être vécu, Thierry.
Et oui, si je peux me permettre d'adresser mes félicitations au réalisateur qui nous a permis de suivre un petit peu tout le monde, les premiers, les 3e, les 4e, les incidents. Donc c'est un Grand Prix qu'on attendait un petit peu soporifique. Mais pour finir, il était assez excitant et espérons que la suite de la saison soit comme ça. Des résultats qu'on attendait, la victoire de Prost, tout le monde l'avait annoncé, c'est ce qui s'est passé, mais ça a été certainement plus difficile que prévu.
Je rappelle la pensée du jour, la mélancolie n'est jamais qu'une ferveur retombée. André Gide, eh bien la pluie tombe, mais nous redressons la tête. On a eu le plaisir de retrouver la Formule 1 après une longue absence de novembre, début novembre jusqu'au 14 mars. Ce fut une longue attente avec tout ce qui se passe en coulisses. On sait très bien que c'est nécessaire, la Formule 1 doit faire parler d'elle, mais on préfère de loin le langage sportif pendant que claquent au vent les drapeaux publicitaires, les drapeaux des écuries, et que l'on ramène beaucoup de travail pour les mécaniciens, d'abord pour les commissaires qui doivent ramener les voitures. Alors quelques échos, Gaëtan Vigneron, quelques sentiments aussi à propos de ce premier Grand Prix de la saison 93.
Non, simplement une perspective pour l'avenir. Le prochain Grand Prix c'est au Brésil, à Interlagos, et dans le classement des circuits les plus favorables au Williams-Renault, eh bien Alain Prost plaçait le circuit d'Interlagos en 2e position et celui de Kialami seulement en 6e. C'est vous dire que donc le prochain rendez-vous devrait encore être assez favorable à Prost et aux Williams. Et dans les circuits plus favorables au McLaren, eh bien Ayrton Senna parlait de Montréal, de Monaco et de Imola. Alors voilà peut-être des précisions à méditer pour l'avenir. Une dernière chose, j'ai personnellement été assez surpris de la performance d'Ayrton Senna quand on pense que ce pilote n'a pratiquement pas roulé. Il a fait 30 tours maximum à Silverstone, il débarque, il signe le deuxième chrono et puis en course il l'anime et il termine deuxième. Chapeau bas quand même.
Il a fait bronzette au Brésil, celui-ci semblait vouloir faire bronzette à Kyalami. Eh bien il prend en même temps sa douche rafraîchissante en attendant le podium. On a beaucoup de mal à réunir tous les pilotes, à les ramener dans la zone officielle. Regardez cette piste tout à fait détrempée. Si le Grand Prix se déroulait encore maintenant, Thierry Tassin, je crois qu'on aurait pu pronostiquer là un arrêt avec peut-être Ayrton Senna en tête de la course.
Avec changement de pneumatique, ça c'était certain. Ayrton Senna et Alain Prost ne s'entendaient pas tellement auparavant. Une chose maintenant qui va certainement les rallier, c'est la fin de course, car ils seront tous les deux d'accord pour rouspéter, ça vous pouvez en être sûr, en disant pourquoi n'a-t-on pas arrêté cette course à 3 tours ou à 4 tours de la fin, c'était beaucoup trop dangereux, donc ils vont peut-être devenir amis vu à ces circonstances de course avec cette pluie.
Ami ennemi, on connaît la chanson et il la répète peut-être un petit peu trop souvent aussi dans certaines circonstances. Mais enfin, cela fait partie des bruits de paddock et il y a parfois beaucoup plus de bruit dans les paddocks que sur la piste. Nous, on préfère entendre le chant des cylindres et aussi saluer les exploits des pilotes. Le public reste très enthousiaste et en attendant ce podium mouillé, Alain Prost est là pour ce premier podium de la saison 1993. Alain Prost, toujours professeur, et Ayrton Senna, saluant la foule. Va-t-il saluer Alain Prost? Ça, c'est une autre chose. Il préfère applaudir des deux mains pour ne pas en avoir une, attendre quelque part. Et le troisième sur le podium, rappelons-le, c'est Blundell. Il y a tout de même eu un échange de paroles. C'est déjà quelque chose. Alain Prost, 45e victoire, record absolu, retour à la compétition, victoire et améliorant son propre record. C'est aussi une fameuse leçon à retenir. Alain Prost, vainqueur du Grand Prix de Kyalami. Deuxième, Ayrton Senna. Troisième, Blundell. Quatrième, Fittipaldi. Cinquième, Leto. Sixième, Berger. Et septième, Warwick. La Marseillaise pour le retour du professeur. Et puis pour le vainqueur constructeur, Williams Renault, l'hymne britannique. Pendant ce temps-là, quelques caméras déjà abritées du déluge de Kyalami. Alain Prost pourra retourner au golf maintenant, pourquoi pas. L'une de ses détentes préférées. Il était à Sun City, cette espèce de Las Vegas, à 40 km de Kyalami. Et là, il y aura un tournoi avec Norman et Ballesteros dès demain. En jeu, 100 000 $. Mais enfin, Alain Prost ne restera pas. Il va emporter cette œuvre d'art et nous emportons le souvenir d'un beau premier Grand Prix. J'espère vous aussi. On vous remercie d'avoir été du voyage par l'image avec nous à Kyalami. Merci d'être fidèle à tous nos rendez-vous sur Télé 21, Futur Sport 21, en collaboration avec le Royal Automobile Club de Belgique. Gaëtan Vigneron, Thierry Tassin, Richard Debert au micro. Bonne après-midi sportive à vous.